This episode of Clone Wars Conversations introduces the Bad Batch and discusses the quality of Season 7, all with plenty of lore sprinkled in, so strap yourselves in. Hello there to my fellow Force users, welcome to Star Wars Chit-Chat, the show where I take you on a journey through all things Star Wars with a variety of different guests. Now, I am joined this week for Clone Wars Conversations because this is the show where myself, Maff and Dave go through the Clone Wars, and we are now at Season 7. This is the finale. There's only going to be a couple more episodes after this, and we're finished. So it's been a really, really long journey. Maff had never seen the Clone Wars before. Dave had seen it once before, and I'd seen it a couple of times before. And we have also seen Star Wars Rebels and all the live-action Star Wars up to this point. But there are no spoilers for the futures of Season 7 or the Bad Batch series, which is very relevant to these episodes that we're doing. Let's get straight into things. So we are doing Season 7, the first 4 episodes. So Season 7 is going to be in 3 parts. And so let's do as we always do. I will ask Dave, what do you remember about these episodes, if at all? Because you also, without spoiling it, you did actually watch some of the Bad Batch series. So tell us a little bit about what you remembered about these episodes at all, and we'll go from there.
I think in my memory, these episodes became the Bad Batch series. Mm-hmm. And so when the episode 1 started off, I thought, oh, well, yeah, we'll spend an episode here. And I was like, oh, right, okay, it's going on and on and on, and these are around for ages. So, yeah, I guess it's what a lot of sort of TV shows used to do, isn't it? They test things out in a main series. You know, Buffy's quite topical at the minute, isn't it? So, you know, with Angel, you had the spin-off series from that. So, you know, you have these popular characters, but it seems like, you know, they'd had the whole series cancelled and then, you know, sprung this up, and it seemed like a good opportunity to try out an idea from, I'm guessing it was Filoni.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hadn't remembered there was quite so much story centered around Clone Force 99. But I did enjoy it, although I feel we've done some arcs and we say, you know, this could have been the movie rather than the movie we got. This could definitely have been a movie, but yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay, fantastic. And then Maff, so your experience, what did you know about the Bad Batch or anything like that, like going into this? Because obviously I hadn't hidden their existence from you, so what do you kind of think?
I knew there was a team called the Bad Batch. That was it.
Easy, cool. And moving on, no, I'm joking. Please tell us a little bit, just an overview, what you kind of...
I knew there was the Bad Batch. I knew there was slightly different clone troopers, but other than that, I didn't really know much about it. And then when we started doing this project, I just didn't look, because I thought at some point we're going to get round to that, so let's kind of keep it on a download. Meeting them, I've just said off air to you, I'm really excited to kind of go into the Bad Batch series because I think it's quite interesting. Plus, these 4 episodes, I didn't know how it was going to end, as in what kind of happens in the last episode, and it makes sense. I do question it a little bit, but it does make sense. But I think it is a very, like Dave says, this could have been a movie. This could have been a kind of, they could have even used this before releasing Bad Batch and go, look, here you go, Bad Batch movie, and then go into the series. It would have probably worked quite well.
Well, I'll let you on a little tiny secret thing that happens in the start of Bad Batch. I may have already said it before, but when the Bad Batch starts, it starts like a Clone Wars episode. So that's the first episode. The premiere of the Bad Batch starts like a Clone Wars episode. So it really does go into that. So it's really interesting how it all goes. I won't say anything about the premiere because it's really good. But it's interesting with this because Season 7 is very well animated. I have my own thoughts about these 4 episodes. I do think they were good. But do I think that of all the episodes they could have done, we should have had these ones and the next ones is going to be a big conversation, I think, for next week. Because, you know, I have certain opinions about the next 4 episodes that a lot of people share, and we'll talk about that afterwards. But the finale is definitely phenomenal in Season 7. But these 4 is just, it does feel like these episodes, especially when you watch the Bad Batch, you're like... You've basically used 1/3 of the finale season of Clone Wars to set up the next thing. And I'm like, that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that. There is cool stuff along the way, But part of me is like, as Maff's idea of like having a little, like a special, like a Clone Wars extra bonus episode-y thing, or a few episodes like this, just like released in between. And then maybe we could have got some of the other storylines. Obviously, we've done the Clone Wars Legacy project, so people need to check those out, where we did Son of Dathomir, the Darth Maul comic, and then also the Dark Disciple book and the unfinished episodes, the Crystal Crisis and stuff. And these were obviously unfinished as well. So a lot of people saw these before it came out, and I'm just like, it's interesting to me of like what they choose for season 7. So as we get into it, I do want to ask this: do you both think, we'll say it from here, the quality of these 4, how do you think it compares to some of the big heavy hitters we've had from the other seasons? You know, we're thinking about, I know we're going to do a big wrap up thing, so all the listeners can tune into that. Once we finish Clone Wars, we're going to do one episode to go through all our absolute favorites and things like that. But do you guys think that this, when we've spoken about season 7 and kind of the hype for it, in general, have you thought it's kind of led up to that hype? I'll go for you first, Maff.
It's hard because I've only seen 4 episodes, so
well, exactly.
I don't know what's to come. It's a weird one because there are certain arcs that we've covered that you kind of think, we will go into them again. Absolutely amazing. And I do actually think these 4 are really good. Again, Anakin is there, but and also Anakin and Mace actually were quite interesting to see them 2 working together. Are kind of there, but I think it's nice when they focus on the clones or on the Bad Batch clones as well. I think it works quite well, but knowing what's going to come next, I mean, Disney have spoiled it a bit because obviously it goes on to the next episode, and I've seen that Ahsoka spoilers. Probably most people have kind of done this journey before me anyway.
It's still, but being able to know that Ahsoka's in it is not really a big spoiler, I'd say.
Ahsoka's going to be there. I'm really excited to I had to stop myself watching anymore. So I saw it and I thought, oh yes, but I think it's nice sometimes when you get an arc like this where it is taken away from the usual Star Wars stuff of lightsabers and that. And like I said, I'm excited to see what we get with the Bad Batch, because I'm assuming it's going to be a lot more of this kind of sneaking, infiltrating, espionage kind of.
There's a degree of that. I won't say in what capacity, but there is a degree of that. We'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end as well. We'll dip back into the future Bad Batch stuff. But what about you, Dave? What do you kind of think of how the hype of what you remember and etc. like that in more depth?
It's a great leading question, Your Honor, because I think these episodes are solid, like very, very good Clone Wars, but they're not top tier Clone Wars. And in my memory, in my hype machine nostalgia for watching it, even though it was only a few years ago, or probably 2 years ago, maybe, I feel like I say, I remember saying I loved the Krell stuff in season 4. And I was like, for me, if I think of anything, I just love the brutality of that and the themes beneath the story. And that really grabbed me. But you could tell it was so still hit and miss, and kind of, I even like, a lot of the episodes in season 1, but it was so patchy. But then in my head, it's like season 5, every episode hits it out of the park. That's kind of what my memory of it is. But you can see, and I guess I feel like there's a trajectory up, even from 5 to 6 to 7. It just gets better and better and better. And actually, I think it's your mind playing tricks, and also a bit of recency bias as well. And it finishes incredibly strongly. And so it's like a game of football, right? If you watch 89 minutes of a boring match, or you're losing 1-0 or something, and then score a couple of goals to win it right at the end, everyone's euphoric. What a match. And the fact that most of it was actually pretty bad, it doesn't really matter, because at the end, that's what mattered. So yeah, I do think they're solid episodes. I do think it is a weird choice to start the season off, given that, I was fortunate and could just binge through the whole load of it, all 7 seasons. But people, I can imagine, would have been clamoring for this, and the variety of stories that they've seen and the speculation, I would imagine, was pretty insane at the time. But yeah, to take these new characters, and you sort of think this is probably an idea that's been bouncing around for a while, but these 4 episodes could sit in season 4, season 5. They could basically fit anywhere. You think the Caminos, they're messing about with genetics, so of course they should be able to dial certain characteristics up and dial some down or whatever. That's not that much of a stretch. But I feel like they didn't really go for the hard themes. There's some things in there which I'm sure we'll talk about, but I find, like, what was the big guy called?
Wrecker.
Wrecker, yeah. He's always there for just a bit of comedy relief, wasn't he? And he's just over accentuating the big brute. There's a guy in X Factor, the Marvel comics, called Strong Guy. There's some things that are just right on the nose, and I feel like that was it. And again, I'm trying, and I'm not going to say it, but there's certain things that happen in early Bad Batch which I was trying to flush my mind of as well when I was watching these episodes.
Yes, yeah, because we'll get into the Bad Batch characters in a second then. So we'll say the first episode.
Can I ask a question?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Did you see these, like the lost episodes that we covered a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
Did you see these before they was actually made into this set?
No.
Has anyone
I
seen
never.
that?
No, I never watched the unfinished episodes, the Crystal Crisis or the Bad Batch ones. I knew of their existence, and I knew the very loose story threads of what happened in each arc, like very, very vaguely. I knew Crystal Crisis was about a giant kyber crystal thing, and I knew it was Utapau, and I knew the Bad Batch. I knew they were genetically changed clones. I knew their powers, or powers in air quotes, kind of a bit, and I loosely knew about. I think I knew about Echo. I can't fully remember that part, actually. Echo might have been a twist for me. So I can't fully remember on that part, but I remember bits and pieces because it does steadily kind of get referenced in the future as well. Because you have to think, Clone Wars came out, then the unfinished episodes included the Bad Batch, and then Rebels happens with Rex and stuff. And although that doesn't directly link to the Bad Batch here, there are then elements that come up in the series, the Bad Batch, then connect to Rebels. So there are lots of subtle things, kind of threads that connect between them.
I just wondered how much the original unfinished episodes were similar to this. If it carbon copied it across.
I think they're quite beat for beat. I'm fairly sure they're quite beat for beat. If I understand correctly.
So, given when we watched the unfinished episode or episodes, because they were all just strung together, weren't they? But they would have been separate episodes. You could tell all the voice acting, and even I wouldn't say all of the music. They'd done a maybe 60% job on the music. Yeah. So it seems to me like the final thing that goes on is the animation. That's the only thing that's missing. So, and they might have touched some things up. There was that ridiculous Palpatine bit, wasn't there, when the voice actors changed, where we saw obviously they dropped something in there. But yeah, I would guess that these were unfinished. It was just the animation that needed to be done.
That's what I understand, because I feel like I looked it up at one point and I kind of had a gander just to see if there was anything that missed out, and I don't think there really was, from my understanding. But it just raises the further question of why they didn't just redo the Crystal Crisis ones. It's just so odd, and they still just haven't, even just as a bonus special when they haven't got anything to release animated for a while. They could have just this year gone, hey, here's a few 4 episodes just for fun, to kind of get you excited about whatever the next thing they're doing is, do you know?
I wonder if that's because these lead on to the Bad Batch, so these lead somewhere, whereas the Kyber Crystal, all right, we did discuss they go into the Death Star, but it doesn't lead anywhere as such. So fair enough if you throw out just we've got a couple of episodes, go watch these, that's fine. But some people are like, yeah, and
it's a tough one.
Yeah, and if you've got enough money to animate 12 episodes, you've got something's got to go, hasn't it?
Yeah. And the next episodes, although people have opinions on them, they are essential. Certain parts of them really do have an impact. But let's get into these ones. So the 4 episodes are called The Bad Batch, A Distant Echo, On the Wings of Keeradaks, and Unfinished Business. So the general plot line is that Rex keeps getting bested on the battlefield, his tactics keep getting learned, and there's no way that he can overcome them, and he thinks the only way someone would know that is if they knew my tactics and studied them specifically. I wonder if it's Echo. And everyone kind of dismisses him a little bit, but eventually they investigate it a lot more, and they find out it is Echo. He's been strapped up to a machine and connected up to this thing and is basically being used as a processor in essence. And then it's them then getting Echo, extracting him, and then there's sort of one final battle at the end, which is taking an Axis, which is the whole battle that they kept losing that made Rex kind of reconsider what was kind of going on. So that's the general plan of what kind of happened here. And I do feel that although I watched these in a few sittings, I do feel like they do blur into one quite a lot. But this first episode, Bad Batch, so you've got Rex. I've got notes here that Rex and Cody are amidst the only like sort of early survivors of like when we see Domino's squad and like some of the earlier clones. Like Rex and Cody seem to be the only ones. So having Echo alive is really interesting. And then we get the Bad Batch intro, which obviously that harkens back to very much later on. That Echo does eventually join the Bad Batch, which is quite cool. So I thought it was a good opportunity to talk about the Bad Batch characters in depth. So we have got. I remember them because there's a character that is in the Bad Batch series, and they've got a certain accent, and me and Megan like mocking the accent sometimes when the characters are said. So it's the characters are Wrecker, Tech, Hunter, Echo, Crosshair. So of those 5, so Wrecker I think is Megan's favorite. I like all of them, but I quite like Hunter. Wrecker's probably maybe my favorite, but I do really like Tech, but that's because in the Bad Batch, he gets a bit more to him. But Crosshair is very badass. So did you guys have a favourite clone of the sort of 5? If you include even Echo in him, because this Echo is also a newish character, so in some respect. So I'll come to you first, Dave. What did you think? I know, again, you've kind of been tainted by the Bad Batch series, but did you have a favourite of these characters or Echo?
I think probably Tech, but it seems to be... It's almost the assembly of a superhero team, isn't it?
100%.
If you're going to put together a good comic book team, you need the Hulk for some muscle. You need Captain America for strategy. This is how you're going to assemble. You need Tony Stark for your tech. I almost feel like this is almost the perfect template. Crosshair is almost Hawkeye, and I did feel like it is a bit of a cliche kind of thing, but again, it's like Clone Wars, isn't it? So I'm quite happy to go with it. I must admit, we only get to meet Echo in the second episode, right at the end, and it's 100%. Almost Star Trek 3: A Search for Spock. Before then, it's you've got this random thing that happens, which makes you think, oh, this person who's I think's been dead for ages. I think they're alive for some reason, for plot reasons. So yeah, I think, like I say, Wrecker, he sort of did my head in a little bit. He was just too goofy, and again, in my mind, we're at the point where it's all very serious themes. We're almost Revenge of the Sith now. So I don't need his buffoonery. So I think you didn't ask the question of who was my least favorite, but Wrecker is probably my least favorite. More to do with just his personality, but yeah, I'll go for the nerd. I'll go for Tech.
What about you, Maff? What do you think?
Sorry, Dave, I like Wrecker.
Heyo.
I think it's that comic relief that you kind of sometimes need. It's weird because, like you say about archetypes there, Hunter, you don't feel like you really get much of Hunter in this, but Hunter seems a bit more Rambo kind of.
Yes.
He's got the red band on him and that, and it's his powers he can feel electricity.
He's kind of like Wolverine minus the extreme healing and claws. He can kind of smell things really well. He can see things better. He's kind of got a sense for stuff, and he explores their kind of unique skills. It's a combination of skills, but also he's just got ultra instincts, really.
But he never really demonstrates them, does he?
I think he's wasted.
Well, I was thinking he's like Billy in Predator. You're thinking, this guy's going to be good. He's going to do something good, and now he's going to face off against the Predator. Here we go, Predator. You're going to have your arse handed. Oh no, he's dead.
I think he's also the best hand-to-hand fighter, I think. Wrecker's the brute, Tech sort of, uses gadgets and stuff. Crosshair's the best shot, but Hunter's like the best hand-to-hand fighter and handy with a knife, that kind of thing.
But I
he's
did
the leader.
get that.
He's like Captain America. To be fair, Captain America's got super strength. Not quite super strength like Hulk super strength, but...
Not in the comics. In the comics, he's just the peak of human condition.
Well, that's it. So, I guess that's not far from Hunter, but I guess he's not like ultra. He's just very athletic and strongish. Sorry, Maff.
Yeah, I did kind of get more of a Legolas Gimli kind of vibe between Hunter and Wrecker. The bit of like, oh, I've killed so many, and then he's running along and he's
Crosshair Wrecker.
Crosshair. So, and Crosshair then takes out 20 in one shot, and it's like, what? But sometimes you kind of need that bit of bravado between them. I mean, in Rebels we have it with Zeb and Ezra. They're very much, and it's like how brothers kind of act and fight with each other. I've just had the two sons messing around and fighting with each other earlier. You kind of have that bravado with them, so it works. And then you've got your couple of serious ones of, Crosshair and Tech's obviously very serious. I do wonder how it's going to work going forward, because will Tech and Echo be very similar in what they bring to the Bad Batch? I don't know, but I think how this finishes, I can see why it's gone that way and why Echo's joined them. But I mean, again, it's hard because so much kind of happens, but it all kind of middles into one, and then in a way, I feel that we've seen this story already. And I think isn't the prison break one when they go and they break into the prison,
the Citadel. That's where where Echo died. That's where he allegedly.
Right,
so that's it's a direct homage to that. Yeah,
they have Tarkin in there, don't they?
And even Piel. Yeah, they've got two halves of the code to the hyperspace lanes or something.
And I kind of thought, in a way, I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah, you have.
What's the race of people? Are they the Keeradaks?
Oh, yeah. There's the Keeradaks are the flying things. The natives themselves are the Poltex.
I kind of thought they've kind of thrown that in there just to kind of break it up. Actually, sorry to go a bit off tangent here.
It's all good.
The Keeradaks, the beasts themselves, did you think that looked a bit like the son when we get, the mother, the sister and the son? And
on the Mortis arc, yeah.
The evil one looked very much like the Keeradaks creatures, I thought.
Oh, when the lightning strikes and stuff, and he goes, you know what, now that you've said that, I wouldn't be surprised if they used similar model. I hadn't considered that, but I think it makes sense, because I think the creatures that the brother and the sister and things turn into a lot of the time are reflective of real life beings. It's like, when in Rebels, the Loth wolves, they're like more exaggerated versions of wolves. So I would not, with how Filoni is, I wouldn't be surprised if you're right.
I was meant to go back and look, and I've just...
I would say if they're not the same, I think they're very, very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if you said that. But the natives and stuff, were you saying something else about them? Was that the main...
I did feel like the natives are kind of thrown in there, and there's a bit of a language barrier between them, and they're trying to kind of work out. And again, we don't mean to come and cause problems and bring the war to you, but oopsie daisy. But at the same point, it is that kind of, you don't want to get involved, but you have to understand what is actually going on out there. The separatists are doing these things, so we just need to make you aware. And unfortunately, we didn't mean to bring the war to you, but this is what the galaxy is like. You need to take a stand, and that. I mean, again, we've seen this arc several times before, and that. So that's the only thing kind of going over this again. It's like it was good, but it's a bit of a rehash of the other 6 seasons that we've seen. It looks good, and that the animation is a massive step up.
Yes,
especially from the lost episodes.
Yeah, the unfinished.
They've actually skinned it, but The only thing is Anakin. I think Anakin does look a bit. Yeah, I mean, you said that you think they've kind of made it so that he looks a little bit more darker, a bit more edgier.
It's more like you've Revenge of the Sith. It's closer to how Hayden Christensen looks in the movie. That's what they've done in this. If you even notice, like Kenobi,
Mace is like that as well.
Mace and Obi-Wan Kenobi, he doesn't have the Clone Wars armor on his hands anymore. He's actually got the flappy sleeve. The main reason is because when they first made Clone Wars, they didn't have the animation technology to make it look good.
Obi-Wan's also got more of his mutton chops and beard.
100%. Well. So I would ask with Dave then, with these episodes, did you? I know you kind of said. Well, with these episodes, Dave, do you feel the same as Maff said? They're quite repetitive, similar of what you've seen before, that kind of jazz. I know you said they are with the archetypes, so.
I feel like the first two episodes, I feel like there was more to latch onto there, because again, it's the start of an episode, so you get introduced to your characters, your new characters, as well as the ones that we know. So getting to know them a bit, but also this mystery. So. Because it's not clear at the start, okay, is Rex just being outfoiled by this algorithm? But no, he's got this weird sixth sense that it's like, no, the person who I thought, it's not an algorithm, it's not AI, it is someone who I thought was dead, and I believe they're alive. So I think in that first episode, there's a decent setup. There's a few things that happen in the second episode as well. There's some interaction where Anakin's talking to Padmé, and Obi-Wan's trying to get in, and Rex is basically the world's worst liar. He's trying to, but then Obi-Wan tips his hand and basically says to Anakin, tell Padmé I said hello, kind of thing. Now, I'd forgotten that it was so obvious that Obi-Wan knew at this point, but he's just willing to turn a blind eye to it. And, you get the end of the second episode, and you find out that Echo is there, and he basically pull him out the Matrix. I mean, it was quite brutal in terms of the artwork. The animation and everything. He's got all these plugs and everything all over him. But then it's the third and fourth episodes where I think it does get a bit samey. It's like just, shoot, there's more action scenes in there, but there's less kind of story to latch onto. So yeah, I feel like 3 and 4 is where it gets a bit samey, and just I didn't need it to be 2 episodes probably.
And I will say I said earlier that with the clones, that the only ones that have been there since the beginning, one of the other ones is actually Jesse, who's the one who's got the sort of tattoo on his helmet, the circle with the sort of asterisk similar in it, and it's also on his face as well as a tattoo. So he's also been there. Go ahead. You ask about
you're going to make you have to really think back.
Okay. We
had an episode many seasons ago where there was all the clones in the factory, and there was one clone who was he was like a crippled clone. He ended up
99.
dying at the end.
Oh,
is that 99?
Relive that.
That's called 99. That's what Clone Force 99 are named after.
Is he kind of a trial run of what the Bad Batch became?
That is a sort of kind of a theory. He had a mutation of some sort, and I think it just happened to be a bad one. But it was Clone Force 99. They are a nod to him, and there are, I think, definitely some connective tissues there.
I mean, you're not going to tell me. I wonder whether he would come up in Bad Batch, whether it's like, yes, he was like the brother who kind of set us all off on our mission kind of thing.
I wish he did. If he did, I would say maybe, and I'd tease you, but I don't think. I think 99 may get mentioned once again in the future at some point, but it's normally like, oh, 99 would have loved this, or something bad happened, and it's like, oh, do you remember when? I don't think it's so clear, and I'll say you do understand more about the Bad Batch through the Bad Batch series, but what they do cleverly is there's no one episode where it's like, here's the reveal. Here's here's the flashback of the Bad Batch. It's not like that. You get drips and drabs of like bits and pieces of information as it goes. And I think by the end, you'll be very satisfied with what you've got. But for the first few seasons, you are like, oh, and it does make you want to watch more episodes because it does tease you quite a bit. And I think that's what, to be fair, the Clone Wars does. I mean, if you think about, like, obviously we all know Palpatine's bad, but like, the different little bits, and he take over the banking system, and how he did this thing and how he did that thing, and all these little pieces, and also with the clones inhibitor chips. Although that was one arc, it was still not. It was told to you in 4 episodes, but it wasn't like ultra clear. It didn't explain every single element, and there were other parts that kind of lead up to it and things. So I just think that it's kind of a long game kind of thing, which I think makes it more valuable, because it does make it so you don't just get, again, a one-off boom episode. But what did you guys think then? We'll talk. There's a couple of little bits. One is the Padmé Anakin stuff. Now, Maff, obviously Dave mentioned it a moment ago, but Maff, people will be able to see on YouTube that behind you, you've got the image. Now, I said to you, did you notice anything different about Padmé in this sort of hologram thing? So
I have seen a lot of pregnant ladies.
Yep.
My wife has been pregnant 3 times. As soon as that came on, I paused it and I'm like, hang on a minute. And now I don't mean to be kind of a bit rude or anything, but obviously she's holding a belly. I just thought, where are we in the timeline? Because she's pregnant.
Yes.
Definitely she's pregnant at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Padme is going to appear further down the line through season 7 or not, but I don't know. It felt as if it's like, we're going to show you. We're not going to say anything about it. If anyone happens to notice, bonus, but the conversation they have is nothing major. There is that bit afterwards when obviously there is a conversation between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and it's like, yeah, I hope you said, hello from me. Hello there. That kind of thing. But it felt like, in a way, it didn't add anything as such if you didn't realise what they're kind of shoving in your face and that. But as I say, I didn't know where this was on the timeline. And that I did make a note, and then you kind of said, "Oh, have you noticed?" And it's like, "Yes."
Yeah, it is certainly interesting. With they doing it so subtly of just her touching there and that kind of model being changed. So, Dave, did you have anything to say about that sort of specific element? Do you notice?
I didn't notice at the time, but then Matt put in the chat. It's like, I think, was it you who put in the chat? Well,
I said, did you notice something about Padmé when you get there?
Yeah, which forced me to go back and rewatch it. And I was like, oh yeah, it's like, right. It's like if you watch Sixth Sense and, you go through the whole movie and you get to the end and you're like, how did I not see that? But you don't. It can be right in front of you and you just don't pick up on it. But I think it's a nice touch to basically ground you. We've been in the Clone Wars for so long, and you can be forgiven for thinking, well, it's just this endless, repetitive thing. It's episode week to week, serialized storytelling. But I think it was there to sort of say, this is close to Revenge of the Sith now. And again, it doesn't, if you're watching that and you don't really pick up on it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't stop you enjoying the episode. But if you do pick up on it, it's like, oh yeah, it's a really good nod. And like I say, I can pretty much put that in the timeline now.
Yeah, it's good because I think it is meant to show she's about 3 months or so. I think that's how far I think. And, we see her give birth, whether or not she's a little bit early or not. I think this is indicating it's about 6 months before. But one thing I wanted to note, because I just wanted to look it up while we were speaking about it, was if there is a difference in the episodes. And there are certain tweaks in each of the episodes, but a lot of them are sort of more minor things. Like, for example, the scene that we spoke about where Obi-Wan arrives looking for Anakin, that's not in the original unfinished one. So that's added into the Disney Plus one. So there's things like that there, and like there's artwork where Anakin objects to some provocative art of Senator Amidala painted on the Marauder. So there was a scene of him getting funny about a painting of Padme. And so there's things like that, and there's a couple of little tweaks here and there, but from what I remember, I'm not going to go through all of them and everything, but there are some changes then. It clearly shows that I remembered incorrectly. There were some little changes here and there, but I think overall the story is basically the kind of the same plot lines. It's mainly about Echo. But I like these additions because there's a bit in the last episode which Mace Windu he tries to talk to all those the droids. And I'm like, I don't.
Very Samuel L. Jackson, that one.
It was
like Deep Blue
very
Sea.
Pulp Fiction. I was thinking Pulp Fiction-y, where he was like when he's at the diner and he's like, you don't want to do this kind of thing. Like, I get that, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know how I felt about it. But then he says that he's destroyed over 100,000 droids over the course of the Clone Wars, and I was like, that's quite mad. So I want to ask, do you guys have any thoughts on sort of Mace Windu over these episodes, although he's only in... Sorry, Matt.
I do have an issue, actually. The plan at that point is Echo's going to basically bring all the droids together. Mm-hmm. So Mace has to kind of hold them all up.
Yeah, Mace and Anakin.
It's Mace and Kenobi. Anakin's with...
Oh, sorry, yeah, 100%. No, you're dead right there. Apologies.
Mace does his thing, his typical, speech that, Samuel L. Jackson would do. And it kind of fits with the character in a way, but they're programmed to do a certain thing. They're not just going to go... This is the issue with the droids sometimes. They give them a bit of personality, but at the same point, they've been programmed to do something. There's a bit further down when they're kind of getting wiped out, and some of the droids just like go, uh-oh, and they head out, and it's like, but they're programmed to attack. Why are they choosing to back off?
I wonder if that's self-preservation, I guess. So I could kind of see it in a sense of like, if you're clearly going to lose the battle, it's probably worth a couple of you running away so you can tell the commander what's happened. But the droid, him trying to tell loads of droids, like, and thank God it didn't work, because if he'd have done that and they'd have all gone, okay, yeah, we won't, you'd be like, what? But with how dicky Mace Windu is in Dark Disciple and stuff like that, I do feel like there's a little bit of, was Dark Disciple maybe after this and after the next kind of collection, I'm right before the sort of finale. Like, I guess because Dark Disciple, it takes place over several weeks. So the start of Dark Disciple could actually be before all this. And then almost the end of Dark Disciple could in theory be after this. I don't know, because they haven't been overtly specific in the timelines I've seen. Maybe I should check the timelines book. But it's interesting of a couple of inconsistencies. I don't know if you guys kind of picked up on that at all. Like Dave at all? Did you think about that or anything with Mace Windu?
Not really.
But you liked his speech?
I didn't really notice him that much. So I don't know. He just... through this journey that we've been on, it's been my unpeeling of realizing how big a dick Mace Windu is. So I think I might have just bottomed out a bit. Just as soon as he comes on the screen, I'm like, oh, this fucking asshole.
I think that's the good and the bad thing about this is the fact that, yeah, you see Mace Windu is a bit of a dick, or a very big dick. Again, maybe it was also a kind of thing where they could get to show Mace's purple lightsaber off and what have you. But the more you watch this, you kind of see how useless the Jedi are at times. I was wondering, because like the Jedi are meant to be very kind of neutral. They're not meant to take sides, but throughout all this, at any point have you seen them take the Separatist side? Have they ever sided with the Separatists? There is an arc where Ahsoka with...
Lux Bonteri?
Lux, yeah. There is that one where you kind of see from the opposite side, from the Separatist side there. But realistically, the Jedi are always against the Separatists. They're always trying to stop the Separatists. Well, so there's not balance there. They don't ever look really at both sides. They're just like, well, Palpatine's kind of, we're our own boss, but we also answer to Palpatine.
Well, I think that's the kind of whole point of the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars by and part. I think, Dave, like, you're a bit more politically astute than I am. Do you have from what you've seen, how you feel the Jedi have become part of almost a government-funded militia almost? How would you describe how the Jedi have come in this kind of sense now, how far into the Clone Wars?
I think at this point, they've completely lost their way. If I understand what I think Maff's saying, I just processing it myself. They're not trying to be impartial. They're basically the muscle for the Republic. But even when we meet Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace, I still keep going back to that thing where they're laughing about, ooh, the negotiations were short. Yeah, we went and bullied someone to bend them to our will. It's not very, monk-like, is it? We're supposed to be looking up at these beings that transcend politics and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it's long gone. They never. They just see the separatists as the baddies, and all the planets who align with the separatists are baddies. They're not stopping to ask, well, why are these planets suddenly aligning? What is it about this message that the separatists are giving? Why
that's
would
the
they
thing.
do that?
Why wouldn't they go to them planets and say, why have you chosen that side? Why have you chosen to side with the separatists? What are they offering that we're not doing? What could the Republic do better for you? There doesn't seem to be any of that. He seems to be like, oh, they're baddies, let's kill them.
Agreed.
The Jedi don't take lives unless it suits us. It's very hypocritical.
Yeah, and we'll get it. Oh, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because I think I was slating the third episode, and we're talking about the Jedi, but obviously we know where Anakin ends up. But I thought the way he took out the old spider, whatever his
Trench.
name was, Trench. Yeah.
Well, that's in the finale episode, actually. Yeah,
Oh, I thought that was in the third.
I've got it noted
It's
down.
in the fourth one.
Oh no,
where
you're
he-
right. It is in the fourth one.
He says,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
just
have
looking
such
now.
weak, because Trench says, oh, you're a Jedi, you won't kill me. And he says, I don't have such weaknesses, and cuts his
Yeah.
arms off.
Yeah.
And so what do you think of that?
But right, he cuts his arms off, and you're thinking, oh man, again, this is really, serious stuff. This is brutal. But the animation choice, he kind of spins around and then falls on his back, cartoon style. Like he's Wile E. Coyote or something. And it's like, for that moment, I wish they'd have just made a different artistic choice. It was absolutely brutal. And then they just sort of made it look a bit comedic.
Yeah, it is interesting, but did you like with Anakin in this? Because it's weird, it's these episodes, and we had it, because the Crystal Crisis on Utapau ones aren't in this kind of batch, pun intended. The Anakin journey in this is quite interesting, because the Padmé thing with Obi-Wan is a really interesting part of their relationship, and it really leans into what Obi-Wan eventually says to Padmé in Revenge of the Sith. But then you've got this bit which really shows, linking in with what we saw in the Crystal Crisis, which is he can't just be patient. He can't disarm people. He has to
Disarm Trench.
Oh, well, yeah, he only disarms people because with Dooku cut his hands off and stuff. But it's like you in Revenge of the Sith, that is. He cannot just do in half measures. He can't do things tactfully anymore. He's falling into that absolutism, almost sick of the war. Like, that's the Darth Vader mentality. It's like, I'm not gonna show you mercy just in case you stop being a bother. I'm gonna stop you so there's absolutely no way you can be a problem again. And that's the kind of thing that Anakin's starting to do now, because he keeps succeeding.
The thing is, really, he's not needed in these episodes.
No.
And that they don't need him to go lead the team, because Rex is more than capable of doing that. And that, yeah, he's handy that he can deflect, that the bit when they kind of go on between the two sky buildings, and he's handy that he can deflect some of the shots there.
He's basically a giant shield, isn't he? That's what he acts like in the whole time. Shield for the Bad Batch in a lot of ways.
He's not needed, so that they've put him in there to kind of show this. I mean, he takes Trench's arms off to get the final code so the bomb don't go off. But then after that, it kind of then goes back to Anakin, and you see Anakin, and he looks pissed off. And Trench is like, but you can't do it. And he's like, and you're like, okay, you could have taken him prisoner there. There was no real reason just to. It's a bit like, I can't remember what the guy when Satine and Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah, the guy, and he gets stabbed in the front.
And Anakin just pops up and he's like, hiya!
Yeah.
I mean, he looks a lot more pissed off in this when he does it, but it's like, okay, you're not taking prisoners anymore, but there is a definite line that's being crossed now. Like you said before, when he says, I don't have any weaknesses, he's already tapping into it. And I think the first time we saw Anakin in season 7, I thought his face looks a bit different. There's something not quite right about his. He looks a bit more angled, a bit more darker. And then you mentioned, this was before I got to the next 2 episodes. It's more on the Revenge of the Sith, and then you see this and you think, yeah, you can start to see that turn in him. Then, darker eyes. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know whether we'll do this, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get to the end of season 7 and he's got a bit of yellow kind of in the back of his eyes kind of thing. It wouldn't surprise me because it's that turn now. He's now on the downward path. And I expect there's probably going to be a couple more bodies left behind for Anakin as we go along.
We shall see. I'm not going to say anything that comes forth apart from that Ahsoka's in it. And so with this as well, with Echo, so him coming back. Now, Dave, you mentioned it a little bit about Echo's turn, but I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if you picked up on it, Maff, but Dave inadvertently mentioned Echo comes back about 7 or 8 episodes ago. Very in passing, we were talking about clones and a future season, and Dave mentioned about Echo, and I played it off very subtly as like flashbacks. I didn't make a big thing about it. Did you pick up on that, Maff? Did you have any suspicion that before this episode that Echo was coming back?
I didn't spoil it. Say no.
No.
You didn't just override go look at and go, yeah, it's like when Echo came back. You didn't do that. It was literally, we were just talking about certain characters popping up again, and you mentioned Echo's name when talking about other characters that are going to come up in the future in a really, really vague sense. And I very much didn't make a big thing about it. So I just wanted to check if Maff had any hint that Echo wasn't dead.
No, now we mentioned about the Citadel Arc, I remember Echo being in there, but because he sacrificed, well, we think he sacrifices himself at the end, doesn't he?
He's only yeah, he does. And he's only in 6 episodes, including rookies and clone cadets, really, before these ones. So he's not like Fives or anything like that, who's in loads of episodes. I remember him being in lots, but actually, he's not that memorable, necessarily.
Who's the one who sacrifices himself on the spaceship when he kind of blows the spaceship up so everyone else can... Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah, there's so many clones that have sacrificed themselves. Unfortunately.
I think that was another one, but when they mentioned CT-1409, I'm like, okay, and then they say Echo, and it's like, that's interesting. I thought it was dead. Obviously, he's not dead. And then I'm trying to back my brains back and thinking, I'm sure he sacrificed himself, but did he die off screen? Which obviously he must have done so that they can kind of. It's quite because is it one tally the weird kind of aliens with the
What's Tambor? He's in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Very briefly. I think I remember what clone you're talking about. Is it Heavy? The one that shoots?
Heavy, yes. Heavy's the one who
he's inside the Separatist. Yeah, he's in the Separatist ship, isn't he? And he's shooting. I haven't got there yet. I'm looking at all the dead named clones, and there are so many. I made a mistake going on this. But I remembered Heavy. Sorry.
Because they mentioned about the Tech Union.
Techno Union, yeah.
Now, are they run by the Separatists, or do they?
So the Separatists, the Confederacy of Independent Star Systems, and the Separatists known as, they are a combination of groups that make like the main council, the main running force of it. One of them is like the banking clan, kind of doing it behind the scenes. Another is the Trade Federation, who make the B-1 battle droids with a long nose. The Techno Union then makes some of the other battle droids as well. So the reason they can do so many droids is because essentially you've got loads of different droid manufacturers and like tech companies coming together, and they, as a collective, make all different droids in a sense.
See, that makes sense now, because the B-1 battle droids are different in that they're like praying mantis kind of in this.
Yes.
Or even raptors, I suppose.
Because they're only special ones the Techno Union make there. And that's why in Phantom Menace you only have the B-1 battle droids on Naboo, because it's only the Trade Federation who's invading. So it's only the Nemoidians and Nute Gunray who are doing it, and the only thing they have are the B-1 battle droids. Whereas you get the Techno Union, who's got loads of these ones, you've got this thing, you've got these ones, these specialty things. That's why there's all different ones in essence. But the Techno Union do make a large portion of them.
Yeah, because when we saw them, I thought, they look a bit different. Why is that? And then obviously then they start flying, and you're like, oh, okay.
But do you think when they're on that bloody pipe thing, and I was like, I know they're trying to not kill Echo, and that's kind of the part, but they were standing on that pipe, and the droid was just slowly walking towards them, and I'm like, what are you? For ages, there were several points in these episodes where the droids were quite far away and not firing on them, and I guess they were going, oh yes, they not kill Echo, but like, he's so much robot. I imagine you could, if he got hit anywhere apart from the head, you could probably wire him back up again. So I did find that a little bit in these episodes where I was like, the plot armor's real.
Man.
Well, again, I think that's probably a subtle a thing of going. Sorry, go ahead.
At that point, if the droids can fly, why wouldn't to me, the obvious thing to do there is, right, okay, right, you're on this big platform in between us both. Let's not shoot you. Let's just shoot the platform away, and then we'll send one of them to go pick him up as he's falling. You know, this is where, I mean, the droids obviously are thinking, but there must be someone at the back controlling all this, because we see those, you know, those slightly bulkier, not the battle droids, but the ones that are always kind of on the bridge.
Yeah,
that's a bit more like boxes.
Yeah, Watt Tambor is one of those. Yeah, he's a Cohen.
No, the droids. There's always...
that are in the other episodes that are like the commander ones that are like, they look like they've always got like a little cap on, and they're like, deep voiced. Yes.
You always assume, are they the ones who are kind of controlling and kind of setting them all up? You know, at that point, you look at it and go, okay, you guys are stuck in the middle here. We'll just take the bridge out so that, you know, we can just pick up the one that we actually want.
It is a bit like everyone goes into this rescue mission. They get who they want out. Everyone survives. There's no casualties. There's no real consequence. It's 4 episodes to go and extract Echo, and they go, wait a minute. Is Echo really working for us? I don't know. This is a risky plan. Let's just do it anyway, even though we might all die. Okay, yeah. Oh, he did it. Oh, and it won. Yep, it's fine. He got a bit zapped. Okay, that's fine.
And Obi-Wan.
Yeah, Mace, who's known to be very not trusting, and Obi-Wan, who doesn't like Anakin's plans, that always go off the deep end. But they go, yeah, let's do it. It's fine. And then Anakin, goes to Trench's ship, and then we'll do all that. And then we beat the Warlord who popped up, even though we thought he was dead. He's now got cybernetics all of a sudden that we don't really reference, because he died in an episode. He died in Season 6, Episode 1, and he was also in Season 2, Episode 16, which was like a prequel thing. And it's all this weird time-jumpy thing with Trench.
I thought Trench had died.
He did.
You know,
that's why he's got cybernetic things, but they just make no reference to it.
I thought, you know, I didn't expect him to come back. I thought,
but it's also he comes back and you go, oh, it's him, and then he dies and you go, oh, all right.
But why not? If you were going to bring him back, just bring back another version, another one, not actually Trench, just have
like a robot version of one almost. That would be quite cool, like a Robo Trench, like that would be clever. Like we've made a tactical droid with kind of what we've learned about Trench, and it's one of those weird things where it's not a big reveal because no one cares about Trench, so he just comes in, he's it
looks cool. That's what it is. You've got a spider kind of creature that looks rather cool.
Yeah, but maybe it just feels like they had the sprite already generated, and they were like, instead of just doing another droid captain, we need Anakin to go dark to kill someone, so let's bring him back to kill him again. But these episodes, so as we've kind of spoken bits and pieces about these episodes, there are more things we want to talk about, like Anakin, when Echo says to him, "You still showing off, General?" And Anakin goes, "You know me, Echo." Like, I like that camaraderie, but I think these episodes are lots of cool little moments, but the actual the plot in general and the narrative beats for me aren't actually that impressive. They feel a little bit like Season 3-ish, maybe even Season 4, the weaker one. Like, it's not bad. There are cool bits. I enjoyed it. The animation's great, as we said, but actually the story, I haven't found there was much that really wowed me. I didn't know if you felt similar, Dave. Obviously, again, we're spoiled because I think you're right with the recency bias that the finale of this is so phenomenal. It can make anything good. But this is not bad. It's just, for me, on this watch, I actually liked it less than I remember liking it the first time. Did you feel that way, Dave?
No, I still maintain that they were good, enjoyable episodes, but there's all different dimensions of why you feel that way. And I do feel like, because the animation has come up so much, that adds to it. There's so much more texture. Some of the angles that they're using, there's a lot more camera movements around the action and things like that. It's a lot more impressive, so that sort of goes up. But I see what you're saying. In terms of story, there's really not much story there. It's like basically, okay, a clone you thought was dead isn't dead. There's intelligence that suggests that this could be some kind of algorithm that's figuring out, say they'll have one plan or one strategy and it'll go well once, but then that's it. They can't use it again. And then they go off and it's a search and rescue mission. That's it. And you get some little nods to the stuff with Anakin and Padme and Obi-Wan and the fact that Anakin's turning a bit darker as well. But yeah, in terms of plot, there's just not a lot there. And there's not too much subtext. So I agree. It feels like story-wise, it could have been in one of the earlier seasons. But again, I definitely enjoyed it. It's a 7 or 8 out of 10. But the top tier Clone Wars, you're talking 9s and 10s out of 10.
I agree. And I will say before I come to you, Maff, is that I did enjoy these, to clarify, and I think there are some emotional beats with Rex which are really poignant. Like when there's a point where Crosshair is just like, I don't really care if Echo's dead, who cares? And Rex goes nuts, like starts hitting him. And Anakin is like, dude, you need to calm down. Like those moments, and when he finds Echo and you see him, as you mentioned, Dave, kind of strapped up to that machine and the way he's like slumped there and stuff, you're like, that is... Again, this is a kid's show. Like, that's really fucked up. Like, let's be honest. That if that was animated in like a really realistic thing, like there's a show called Arcane that's got a lot of intense, mature themes in it. And you're like, if you animated that in a slightly different way, it would be horrifying. But even seeing his like ribs and the cables coming off him, it is like a worse Matrix. And so there are some really good bits, and I did genuinely enjoy it. And I think it's got quite a wow factor the first time you watch it because there are those beats that hit you. But for me, maybe not as much. But Maff, I really want to hear what you think now that we've kind of come full circle with those elements.
I'm sorry, but I didn't feel these was a bad batch of episodes.
Oh, there we go.
But the thing is, I'm coming into it, and like I say, I'm excited to kind of see what we see with the Bad Batch. I like that they've sprinkled a little bit in there for us, but there's still a lot that I don't know. As I say, I do wonder how Echo and Tech are going to work, because I do feel they're kind of a bit of the same character to a certain degree, but we'll see how it goes. But I like the fact that they all had, apart from Hunter, they all had a bit of a moment. If this is probably the worst arc that we're going to cover this season, and that, oh, okay. Okay. And that, then I was just thinking that maybe it's middle of the road, but I think we've had better seasons and that, and definitely better arcs. It's just, is this going to be one of the ones where when we kind of do a big wrap up and we go, oh yeah, do you remember that Bad Batch? They'd be like, yeah, it was all right. Now maybe if we were never to get the Bad Batch further down the line, these might be actually held in a bit more regard. And that people thinking, oh, well, cool, when we saw them, we'd love to see a bit more of the Bad Batch, but maybe because you've both seen the Bad Batch or seen a season, at least, Dave, it probably falls a bit flat.
Yeah, well, I do want to ask with these, because you said, Maff, you were interested in actually, these episodes have grabbed you. You said that you were actually quite interested in watching the Bad Batch series, which obviously, for friends listening, we're going to take a little break from Clone Wars when we finish that with Tales of the Jedi, do some of the movies and whatever. So it's going to be a little while yet. So if people want to watch the Bad Batch, you've got some time. But what is it about these, Maff, that made you want to watch? What made you so interested? Because I know a lot of people were a bit lukewarm on the idea. So what about these have appealed to you to make you want to watch more?
I mean, Dave has mentioned before, I do feel that Anakin's a bit wasted and shouldn't really be in these episodes. I understand they're obviously trying to show a darker side of him, but the more fun episodes we have of Clone Wars are the clone episodes. And seeing the only issue sometimes with the clones, I mean, you have a relationship with Cody, Rex, Heavy Fives. There's certain ones that stand out and you kind of really root for. But they're all very similar, whereas these guys aren't. And having maybe a few episodes or a series of these guys and putting them in situations where you don't have Jedis, you don't have anything like that as such, you just seeing how these work and all having their own strengths and weaknesses. It's a bit like Dave said, your Marvel superheroes, or even your 80s, when you had a couple of people got kind of thrusted together and they had to work as a team, and you like to kind of see how they work together, and those who have strengths in one way and weaknesses over how they could bring it together and win the day. So at the end of the day, that's what we're watching it for. I mean, yeah, it's cool to see Anakin go batshit crazy and kill off a few people, but at the same point, you want that hero's kind of, trumpet at the end of seeing how they, a group of people who shouldn't work because they're all so odd, maybe even, I say, I don't know what the history behind it, but the rejects was they kind of tested and it didn't quite work, but because these 4 or 5 people get put together. I mean, you mentioned Jesse. Is Jesse one of the clones from the?
Yeah, he's from Domino Squad. He's back. He knew.
Has he got like an orange?
No, that's Cody. He's got.
No, Cody's got yellow. Does Jesse have like an orange or a red?
Not to my knowledge. I think he's blue because he becomes an ARC trooper with 5s. He's got the stamp, almost a grey circle with like an asterisk kind of thing stamp on his helmet. I'll try and get a picture up for people watching along. But it's with the clones.
He has it on his head, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got a tattoo and also on his helmet. Yeah. Well, I want to go to you, Dave. So with Bad Batch, has this made you want to go back and watch Bad Batch? Because I will note that actually the voices of the Bad Batch individually in this are not as defined as in the series. In the series, Tech and Hunter especially sound a lot more defined. I found when Tech and Hunter were talking a little bit occasionally, it sounded quite similar to each other. But did you have that same feeling with this, Dave, about wanting to now go watch Bad Batch, or the opposite?
Neutral, I would say. I don't think it made me think, oh yeah, I really want to see this team and what they do. I like I say, I'd persevered with the season 1, and I just didn't really ever feel like I got a payoff. I hear what you're saying about there's, it gets better and there's some really significant things, and we kind of talked about, a reoccurring character that might show up, or a character that we thought had gone would show up there. So I'm okay with getting to it when we get to it. Again, it's okay, I think, as a team. It does seem an odd one if you're going to create a splinter, mini series or whatever. I don't watch this and think, oh yeah, definitely need to see more of these characters. I think it was more a predetermined thing. They're very deliberately put in here because someone is a massive fan, wants to put this team of badasses together and then create another series from it. Yeah,
I think I'm looking forward to when we eventually tackle the Bad Batch. But I don't think there's any massively bad episodes of Bad Batch. It's a lot more consistent than Clone Wars, a lot more. But there are just quite a few episodes where you're like, yeah, that was all right. 6.5, 7 out of 10. It was good. Did I love it? No, but it was all right. But I find that about half the episodes of Bad Batch for me as a season were like, I wouldn't say filler, because there are always elements in them that kind of go places eventually. But there are quite a few, and I feel like this series, although seeing Echo back is cool, in the grand scheme of if you were just doing the quintessential Clone Wars episodes, which again, when we do the episode, I'll give you guys a little bit of prep of the kind of things we'll be thinking about, of like the quintessential episodes and our favourite episodes and the worst ones. This is, if there wasn't a Bad Batch series, this would actually be quite skippable. Like, Trench coming back was not anything anyone thought about or cared about, and he was dead last time we saw him, so that doesn't matter. Echo being alive or not doesn't really have an impact in the story of the Clone Wars, so that doesn't really matter. And then, yeah, there's knowing that Obi-Wan knows about Padmé earlier than we knew for certain. That's a cool detail, but you could have literally put that scene in any arc in basically the last several episodes and things, or onward. So for me, although I did enjoy it, I do find that overall it didn't have the big impact you'd expect. This is the finale season. This is wrapping stuff up. And the thing is, this just feels like it's still just random kind of missions. It doesn't feel like the war's wrapping up. It feels, yeah, Anakin's kind of pushed over the edge a little bit. Maybe the Jedi are a bit tired, I guess, with Mace Windu saying that whole, I've destroyed 100,000 droids kind of thing. But it is just of all the stories that weren't told. And I think when we do the next episode and we do the collection before the finale, because when we do the finale, we're only going to want to talk about the finale. So the next episode, what I'll do is I'll look up in a bit more detail some of the other Clone Wars episodes that were written, or at least parts of them were written, the ideas were done, but weren't even produced or anything. And we'll talk a little bit about them, because one of them's like a Jedi temple underneath, a Sith temple underneath the Jedi temple, and like Yoda goes and explores it and gets lost or something, and then Anakin has to go save him. It's like lots of, which sounds cool, but you're like, we'll discuss what made the final cut of what made it into season 7. But one last thing I'll say is that I really thought that the action scenes, I know Dave, you mentioned it with the choreography, the action scenes in this, obviously the animation style is a step up, but some of them are so cool and well thought out. Not only the cinematography, but like each time the Bad Batch had a time to shine, it really showed that cool bit. I think in the second episode, or maybe it was the first one when they were introduced, it was like, how are we going to defeat all these droids? And it's like, oh, this is easy. Let's do Plan 82 Shockwave. And then they'd go and do it, and they just take all these droids out. A kind of thing that you don't really see anyone do that unless they're a Jedi. So the action scenes, I think, were really cool as well. So anything you guys want to say about the action scenes? And then if not, we'll move on to the final thoughts.
I did find it interesting that for the bit with the bomb, when it was like, oh, there's a bomb on the set. Oh dear. That it was Mace that went, I think it's been written to try and make it kind of feel a bit more for Mace, but I think that was more of a thing that probably Obi-Wan would have actually done. It'd been like, Mace, you get them all out there. I'll go sort this out. He's the defender. He's the one that would kind of sacrifice himself to make sure everyone else got out. And I just thought it was a bit weird, the fact that they used, but I think they've done it so that it gives you a bit more feeling towards Mace.
I find it, you mentioned Mace and the bomb. I'd completely forgotten about the bomb, so forgettable. But it's also so weird that it's like there's 6 numbers, and then 0 to 9, and like what could the last one be? And it's like, oh no, the bomb's going to go off. What is it? It's 7, and he does it, and he moves the dial, and immediately as soon as the dial gets to the right notch, he goes on, and I'm like, if you've got every code apart from the last number, wouldn't you just do? Like if it's a slider,
just
not like because if it's a keypad, you could argue if you typed it wrong certain times, it would gone.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Exactly. That's what I saw, and I watched it, and I thought, oh, maybe it's because you have to put it down and press a button, and then if it's the wrong button, it explodes. No, he just moved it, and I know that's not a writing thing. That's probably just a speed of animation thing. But again, I was like, meh. So, Dave, anything you want to mention about the action scenes, and if not, any final thoughts?
I do think they reserved the best action scenes for the Bad Batch. Again, in that episode 4, it's like if you imagine the camera, it's kind of spinning round, and you got people throwing grenades and stuff like that. It's so kinetic. It feels like it's got a real energy to it.
The ricochet shots.
And even Anakin. I mean, we're saying Anakin doesn't need to be in there, but there's a time when they go up and it's almost like these big War of the Worlds type robots, and he's jumping up and slicing through.
Octoptaras, Tri-droids. I looked it up because they're in Revenge of the Sith and stuff. Sorry.
They are pretty cool, but the way he just takes them down, and again, I don't remember it from the earlier seasons, but they're making full use of the cameras moving around, basically, as opposed to those static shots and just
definitely got Disney money. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's the budget, isn't it? You can see it.
It goes Disney Star Wars, and it's like, fair enough.
Yeah,
I get it. You own it now, and you did season 7, but it seemed a bit more like in your face of, we did this one. You're gonna love it.
It's really using the camera as a tool, as opposed to, because a lot of the early Clone Wars, David, you say, is almost like looking down on like a chessboard. And you're just watching people, and it's like zooming in. It's like from bird's eye view kind of stuff, watching people move around, and then kind of zooming in a little bit from kind of ground shots, zooming, and it's the camera's moving quite juttery and fast. But as you say, it's a lot more fluid. And when there's the ricochet shots, it really follows the blaster. And like one thing that you've mentioned, which gets mentioned in a lot of our friends' podcasts and stuff, when you talk about like horror films and action scenes, back to the filmography mentions it a bit, which is knowing where you are in relation to things.
Yeah,
I think Spider-Dan says that as well. And I think in these episodes, actually, you really know where you are. You feel you know where you are the entire time.
Yeah, 100%. And a question I had actually before we wrap up, the Techno Union, have we met them in live action at all?
Yes. In Attack of the Clones, when Obi-Wan goes to Geonosis, and before he gets captured by Dooku in the floaty thing, he sneaks up and hears a meeting. And one of the meetings, you got one guy who goes, "The banking clan will sign your treaty," and he's immune. One of them is Wat Tambor from there, and he twists a dial in his chest and goes, "The Techno Union."
Yes.
And he twists it, and then because I remember him, because I hate his voice doing that weird modulation thing. He's there.
Yeah.
So that's when you first see him, and then he is very briefly in Revenge of the Sith as well. But
very good callback. I couldn't remember, and there's something I find about his design a little bit jarring. I don't feel like the design sits in the Star Wars universe. It feels to me like something that should be in Hellboy or something like that.
Yes,
that
it's
kind
almost cyberpunk, isn't it? Almost.
Exactly, cyberpunk kind of style, and especially with the dial and stuff like that. So, yeah,
I was thinking a bit more like Dune, like back in the 80s Dune. Remember the suits that they have?
Well, it's like David Lynch kind of style stuff, isn't it? With that weirdness, essentially, less fantasy. Because it's with the Skakoans, which is the species Wat Tambor is, they actually are like reptilian almost, but they've got these masks on because they can't breathe the air a lot of the time. And there are some comics in the 2020 Vader comics. Vader meets Wat Tambor's nephew or something, and he kind of goes after Vader for killing his uncle or dad or whatever. It's quite weird, but you get to see him in the comics a little bit, and I think Dr. Aphra goes against one at some point, so you do get to see them with the mask off, down, surrounded by the air. But yeah, Wat Tambor is in live action. So let's do final thoughts then. So I've kind of said I liked them, thought they were good. Animation's great, as Dave said. Obviously the voice acting's pretty good. It's pretty solid. But for me, it's a little bit of a letdown, just on the basis that if there wasn't a spin-off, it would be quite inconsequential. Nice little moments for me. And again, those droid things are droids, but they're Octuptara. And they are in a few comics and bits and pieces here in Revenge of the Sith. So, Dave, no, sorry, we just came to Dave. So let's go to Maff first. Maff, final thoughts of what you had of these episodes. I know that you did actually quite like them, and it's the first time you've seen them and things, and we're not saying they're bad, but how do you feel about them, and anything else you want to mention?
I think they're fine, and that I'm interested to see where we go with the Bad Batch. They're not amazing, but they're fine. The animation is a big step up, and that it's carried the story on, but I think because I know Ahsoka's going to be next, I'm excited to kind of get into the next ones. But whether you say there's a lot to say about them, but as I say, it's weird. It's that thing because I know that we've only got 2 more podcasts of the Clone Wars. So we've got
aside from the wrap up one, basically.
Yeah, but there's like a 3 episode and a 3 episode.
No, 4 and 4.
4 and 4. Okay. My maths is awful there.
That's all good.
But it's like, you say that the finale is like the big thing, and that I'm desperately trying. It's like when I go on IMDb, and that I'm trying not to scroll too far down so I don't see what's coming next. And Disney trying to avoid. I know Disney spoiled a little thing, but they're fine. But I'm excited to kind of get on to the next bit of the stuff that I do want answering, I do want wrapping up, and I do kind of want to see where it goes. So yeah, it's fine, but I can't wait for the next episode.
Amazing. And also I'll put details in the description for our plugs and stuff, because I realized that we haven't really said them, and because it's going to be so far in the future, I'll give the baton to you, Dave. Just quickly say about your plugs and then your final thoughts, and also if you remember anything non-spoilery about your thoughts on the next 4 episodes as well. So plugs, then your thoughts.
Plugs. So we'll probably be doing, let me think, we'll have finished Love Island on Chris and Dave's reality cast. We'll probably be doing Married at First Sight Australia, which starts towards the back end of February. on the VHS Strikes Back. God knows what we'll be doing when this comes out, but it will be something from pre-2005 that you would have likely rented out from Blockbusters. Let's put it that way. You know what? I came into this conversation. It's almost a similar journey to how I remember it being with Phantom Menace. I think I've watched these episodes and I've come into this conversation and like, yeah, quite like them, but actually, I feel like it's challenged how I feel about the episodes just in this conversation. And I think one of the things you said, Mike, was, if you look back over the Clone Wars and you think about those real standout episodes, this doesn't make it. They are solid episodes. You can definitely see how the animation stepped up. The voice acting is always top notch. The sound design is always top notch. So that's even for the bad episodes, that's always really good. But yeah, just in terms of story, it doesn't grab you as much as the other stuff. And then in terms of the next ones, I did have a sneaky peek. I don't remember how I feel about them. Again, I've got that recency bias of I kind of want to get through these next 4 to get to the last 4. But yeah, so I don't remember a great deal. I'm sure once I start watching them, I will. But God damn it, I want to see those last 4.
Yeah, we're going to wait a little bit, unfortunately, because I'm not going to be able to record another one for a couple of weeks. But I'll talk about that off air. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those. So you can find me at Genuine Chit-Chat. I forgot to mention that as well, and all the other cool Star Wars stuff we're going to be doing. Around the time this comes out, we might even be doing Andor, because that's April. And so I haven't even started releasing the Star Wars Legacy ones. But I'm so excited. We're so close to the end of the Star Wars journey. It's so fun to be able to go through this with you. And yeah, I'm so excited to get to that finale. So excited. But we've got 4 very interesting episodes to go next. Very Ahsoka-centric. I would say probably some of the most focused on Ahsoka episodes than we've ever had. So that's the only hint people get. But yes, the next ones will be episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 for the next episode of Clone Wars Conversation. So I think that's everything, friends. So thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please comment if you're on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please share with your friends, reviews, all that kind of great stuff. And there's nothing else to say aside from, may the Force be with you.
And with you.